He's always been a decent wrestler. I would consider him a pretty good wrestler, pretty talented, but great? I don't know. I don't think so. What has he ever done that's great? Like, he's never had a great match, I don't think, ever. I don't know. I don't want to say, but I think Paul's a little overrated. He's overrated for being great, but I can't sit here and tell you that I can name one match that I ever thought he ever had with anybody that was great. I don't think he's a great wrestler.
Those comments came from Bret Hart, who spoke with Wrestle Talk TV in the UK this past week. Very controversial interview. Obviously did not mince any words about his feelings on Triple H, who of course now is the heir apparent to the throne in WWE, which makes Bret's comments even more suspicious to me, just because Bret is on pretty good terms overall with the company right now. That includes Triple H, Vince. He makes appearances liberally here and there. In fact, Bret made an appearance at the Royal Rumble last weekend. He was already in town for the little fan fest they did. He participated in a panel along with Shawn Michaels that was hosted by Jerry Lawler, talking about what else? Montreal. So because he was in town, they used him the next night at the Rumble. Otherwise, I don't think Bret would have traveled all the way to Phoenix just for a quick backstage cameo with Alberto and Ricardo. That was the reason, really, why he didn't show up on the 20th anniversary of Raw, because he basically said, listen, I am not traveling all the way to Houston for this if you don't have a meaningful role for me, whatever that is. I don't know what that meaningful role would be. Maybe they wouldn't have invited him anyway, but that's the reason why he was at the Rumble, because he was already in town. So this interview here to me is just, you ask yourself, why would he make comments like this? And on the one hand, I kind of respect Bret for it, because obviously he's speaking his mind. And a lot of people in his situation who are on good terms with WWE, and Triple H, of course, is the head guy, right? In some ways, Vince is the head guy, but Triple H is very high on the totem pole. One day he's going to be running the show. In many ways, he already is running the show. And for Bret to go out there and make those kinds of comments takes a lot of, brass balls, quite frankly, on his part. It just felt like he didn't care. He was asked a question. He gave an honest answer. He didn't lie. He didn't pussyfoot around it. So for that reason, I respect Bret Hart. And I like Bret Hart. Bret was one of my favorites as I grew up as a wrestling fan. He's one of my favorite champions of all time. In my opinion, one of the best wrestlers of all time. Not the best, but one of the best. He's had some tremendous matches in WWE. Many of my favorite matches involved Bret Hart. The matches with Owen, the matches with Austin, the matches with Shawn, other matches even here and there with guys like the 1-2-3 Kid and Hakushi and Jerry Lawler and just a whole bunch of other people. Bret was a very good professional wrestler. He took a very realistic beating every time he would have a match, and he would get whipped chest first into the turnbuckle. He would just get the hell beaten out of him, and it would really feel and look like he was taking a beating in there. So I respect Bret for that. Having said that, and I am not the biggest Triple H fan in the world, I think that... Here's the thing about what Bret said about him being overrated. You heard the comments there. Basically, what Bret said is this: I have a certain amount of respect for Triple H. I think he's overrated. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. And my thought on that is this. When I think of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and this is my own personal list, so I'm biased. I grew up a fan of Hulk Hogan. The whole thing when you grow up in WWF in the mid-'80s, the late 80s. So on my list, Hogan would be on the list. Not that Hogan was ever a great wrestler. He was a good wrestler when he wanted to be. Just go watch some of his matches in Japan. He was fine. Hogan would be on the list. Austin would be on the list. Bret would be on the list. Michaels would be on the list. Kurt Angle would be on my list. Okay, there's a lot of names like that would be on my list. Randy Savage, okay, among others. I can't say that Triple H would be on my list of top 10 even best wrestlers of all time. I don't think Triple H is a top 10 greatest wrestler of all time. Ric Flair would be on that list. Okay, Triple H would not be on that list. Would Triple H be on my top 20? Perhaps. I'd have to really sit down and take the time to put a list like that together, which I have no interest in doing. For Bret to go and say, though, and by the way, Bret did another interview as well about the subject. He was asked, and he made another comment, which you didn't hear in the audio there, about how Triple H wouldn't even be on his list of the top 1,000 greatest wrestlers of all time. Now, to me, I hear these comments, and I hear a lot of bitterness in Bret's voice. Because it's no secret that back in '97, there was a lot of bad blood between Triple H and Bret, mostly from Triple H's side, I think, because Triple H felt like Bret was slighting him in some way. I mean, there's a lot to this backstory here where there was a match on Raw. Bret was supposed to put Triple H over. He had the finish changed. He didn't want to put Triple H over. Whatever the reason was, I guess he was champion at the time. He didn't feel it was going to be the right thing to do. Triple H wasn't as big back then as he is, now, or even 2 years after that he would become. I think it goes all the way back to that. Everybody knows the story. Triple H on the conference call before Montreal with Shawn and Vince. Triple H is the one who puts forth the idea about doing whatever it takes to get the belt off Bret. Essentially, the Montreal screwjob was the brainchild of Triple H, not Vince McMahon, not Shawn Michaels. And I have not yet read Bret's book. I want to. I have a copy of it. I haven't read it yet. I know he talks about Triple H in the book. From what I understand, the comments are not that complimentary about him. I don't know if he addresses that, if he addresses the fact that he was so intimately involved with the planning or again, just the idea even of the screw job being presented. I don't know if he gets into that or not. I think Bret harbors a lot of ill will towards Triple H because of that. I just don't think he likes him. And I think it's coloring some of his comments here because I can understand Bret not wanting to call Triple H a great wrestler. I think personally Triple H is a very good wrestler. I think Bret is a little full of himself when he talks about that, and I think he's letting his judgment get clouded by his personal hatred for the man. I don't think he likes Triple H, and I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. I don't really believe that Bret Hart, for example, when he says that Triple H has never had a great match, that's where you lose me. I can rattle off a whole list of great matches Triple H was involved in, and you can argue, well, it wasn't him, it was because of his opponent. That's bullshit. When you're in a match, it's either good or it's not, it's great or it's crap, largely because of the effort put forth by both guys. It's not usually just because of one person or the other, unless you're talking about a great Khali match, okay? That's a different story. Triple H has had great matches with Mick Foley, he's had great matches with The Rock, he's had great matches with The Undertaker, he's had great matches with Shawn Michaels, among others. Chris Jericho, okay? He's had a lot of great matches. Triple H, that match with Cactus Jack at the Royal Rumble in 2000, you can't tell me that wasn't a great match. It's one of the best championship matches in certainly Royal Rumble history. I can't remember Bret Hart ever having as good of a championship match at a Royal Rumble as that match was. Not that Bret had that many. He had at least one. Actually, he had two. One of which was with The Undertaker in 96, and I remember that being a boring match. You going to blame that on The Undertaker? And that's the thing about Bret making those comments about the match with Triple H and Undertaker last year. When Bret says, before Triple H wrestled Undertaker last year, I remember watching it and going, I can picture the whole match in my head. I can tell you exactly what this match is going to be, how it's going to go. And I remember watching it, and it went exactly as I predicted. I thought it was mediocre at best, maybe a 4 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. Okay, so that's what he said about the Triple H Undertaker match last year. Undertaker vs. Triple H last year, to me, was not the match of the year. I think when I did my year in review show, I ranked it at number 3, I believe. It was a very good match. I was there for that match. It was a very good match. Was it The Undertaker's best match at WrestleMania? Was it Triple H's best match at WrestleMania? No. But for Bret to sit there and go, well, this match really wasn't that good, and it was only a 3 out of 10... It's one thing if you have some animosity towards Triple H and you want to kind of take it out on him. I hear these comments and I think to myself, what does The Undertaker think hearing these comments? I mean, to me, it's like a slap in the face of The Undertaker every bit as much as it is a slap in the face of Triple H. You really want to go out there and hurl insults at The Undertaker? That rubbed me the wrong way when I heard that. But here's what really rubbed me the wrong way. When Bret makes the comment about, I could picture that match in my head, move for move before I even watch it. Are you kidding me? You, of all people, are going to make that comment that I could picture the match before I even... Bret Hart would go out there and would have the same fucking match every single week, almost without fail. Sometimes maybe there was some unique stuff mixed in there, and it didn't affect my enjoyment of Bret Hart matches. I loved Bret Hart as a wrestler. It was such a pleasure watching him in the ring. But Bret's matches, people complain about John Cena, the 5 moves of doom. Bret Hart had the 5 moves of doom before John Cena ever did. Side Russian leg sweep. Elbow smash off the second rope. Backbreaker. I'm getting the order fucked up here, but just work with me here. Sharpshooter. There may have been another move I'm thinking of. Of course, the bump as well in the corner I mentioned, when he takes the chest first bump into the corner at warp speed, right? Bret's matches followed the same formula that any other wrestler's matches would follow, just the moves were a little bit different. Bret would go in there, and I too can picture the exact match he was going to have before he would even have it. You could say that about anybody. You could say that about Ric Flair. You can say that about almost all of the top stars. So who is Bret to come off saying, I could picture that match before it even happened, and that's why I thought the match was only mediocre at best, as though Bret would go out there every week and would bust out a brand new move. I never saw Bret Hart bust out a plancha in a match. I never saw Bret Hart bust out a Hurricane Rana. He'd throw a victory roll in there every now and then. That's how he won the King of the Ring in '93, but, I mean, give me a break. It's the same criticism that he levied against Ric Flair, another person that he hates. Bret has had a war of words before with Ric Flair. They've gone back and forth, and I think it stems from comments that Rick made in his book about Bret that Bret was probably irked by. So Bret decided to take it upon himself to go around saying Ric Flair sucked and this and that, although, in fairness, Bret's been saying that for a lot longer. Bret was making comments about Ric Flair even in the early 90s. And when they worked together in WWF, they had some pretty good matches, and I remember hearing that, Bret reamed Flair out in the locker room once before a match in '93. I think it was before a house show. They went out there and had an hour-long Iron Man match, basically, in Boston. And as the story goes, Bret was in the locker room and basically was, yelling at Flair about something and telling him, I'm going to be the ring general tonight. And anyway, the point is, he said the same thing about Flair in the past. Flair's matches were all the same. The big Flair flop, right? And the Flair flip in the corner, throw him off the top rope. And that's true. Ric Flair's matches were very much the same way. There's a reason why people will say that Ric Flair is one of, if not the greatest wrestler of all time. It doesn't change the fact that he would go out there and have great matches. So to hear Bret say that, I thought it's like the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, really, of all the things for him to say, that was a pretty weak argument of all people for Bret Hart to use, when your fucking matches would be very similar also, every time you would go out there. So, to me, that's a completely invalid argument. So, again, I don't know what side of the bed he woke up on that day or what Triple H may have said to him in Phoenix. Maybe Triple H spilled coffee on him or something and put Bret in a bad mood. But I think he's letting his personal feelings get in the way of his, perhaps his honest feelings. I don't know what his real thoughts are on the Triple H Undertaker match. Maybe that's how he really feels. You can be a great wrestler. You can be great at whatever you do, whether you're a wrestler or not. I could think that I'm very good at my day job. The difference is, people don't want to hear you going around talking about how great you are. And that's one of the things that has always irked me about Bret, and it's one of the things that some other wrestlers will complain about, members of the clique who were no innocent angels, but whether it was Kevin Nash or Triple H himself would make comments in interviews in the past to the effect that Bret had a very high opinion of himself. And I think you listen to that interview and you hear it there. Bret has always had a very high opinion of himself. He'll always stick comment, I was the best at this, back in the day when I would do this, I would do it in such a way that made me, different from everybody else, and, I don't want to toot my own horn, or, he always has a way of kind of sneaking little comments in there, because he really, in his mind, feels that he was among the best, and one of the greats of all time, and he was, but nobody wants to hear you say that. You can be great and let other people do the talking for you. Let people like me, when I do shows like this, talk about what a great wrestler Bret Hart was. But when Bret Hart goes out there and talks about what a great wrestler Bret Hart was, you can see where that will rub people the wrong way. And I think that's a very valid criticism of Bret, quite frankly. If we're going to throw it back in his face here, I think that that's a very valid criticism. And why things don't necessarily sit well with people when Bret makes comments like this, because, for Bret to say, I was an innovator, just like people like CM Punk and Rey Mysterio were innovators. Well, that's true. Rey Mysterio certainly was an innovator. I don't know if you can call CM Punk an innovator. I think Kenta over in Japan might have something to say about that, given that Punk has stolen some of his moves, but I see the point he's trying to make. People don't want to hear you talk about how great you are. I think that's a lesson that Bret still hasn't learned after all these years. And like I said, I am not the biggest Triple H fan in the world. I do think in some ways he is a little bit overrated, perhaps. But I think he's still a very good wrestler, and this notion that he's never had a great match, and Bret says, God, you think he'd have a great match by now? I don't know what Bret's been watching over the last 10, 12 years. I could think of a whole bunch of great matches that Triple H has had, And, he'll go into the Hall of Fame one day, and rightfully so, and people are always going to say whatever they want to say about him and Stephanie, and would he be as successful if he didn't marry the boss's daughter? I don't think he would have been as successful. Obviously, he wouldn't run the fucking company, but I still think he would have done very well for himself because he's very good. There's a reason WCW signed him. WCW wanted to re-sign him to a contract. There was a bidding war of sorts between WCW and WWF back in 94, 95 for Triple H's services. Triple H went to the WWF, and the rest is history. But he was a sought-after commodity because he was a good wrestler. People had a lot of high hopes for him when he was younger. So, anyway, that's my thoughts on the Bret Hart situation there. I think Bret's a little full of himself. I love Bret Hart. I think he's, one of the best of all time, but he's delusional if he thinks Triple H is the only guy to have a match where you can predict the moves he was going to use in the match before it even happened. Like I said, it's a little hypocritical, I think, of him to say that.